First, I am beyond proud of our Board of Education for hatching this vision so many months ago. Just coming to that understanding as a board that we can and must do better for our kids district-wide. Grateful for the opportunity to kind of slide in about 9 months ago and just immediately caught onto their vision. So I'm grateful for that. Tonight was kind of that milestone B. I mean, the 19th was kind of the milestone, but we had inclement weather. So to get to this point where we've narrowed it down now to a single recommendation, we've answered a lot of the questions that have been lingering for many of our families and faculty and staff, and for our kids. And so really excited to be to this point. We know the work isn't done. I know our board, every one of them, we value the fact that they have a vote and that they own that vote. And so we understand the consideration that they're going to give to this, to continue to give to this from this point until March 4th. I'm proud of our staff. I mean, we have collectively done the work of the board, their vision, their drive, and proud of them. Grateful for our community who gave us literally thousands of pieces of input that we could consider as we really narrowed down scope and got to that final pathway. So could not be more excited. And at the end of the day, my excitement is because we believe that this pathway will truly lead to greatness for our district and opportunities for our kids. So that's where I am right now. Paula, I'll kind of hand off to you, but just could not be more excited right now.
I was going to start with I'm just beyond excited that we know where we're going now. We know we've got March 4th coming up. We'll hear from community members. But the short-term hardships, the 38 meetings that Dr. McDaniel has done with community, all of that will be so worthwhile when we see kids get the resources they need and we really see equitable education across the district. The district staff has been phenomenal. They answer all of our board's questions as quickly as they possibly can. I always knew, from the start, Dr. McDaniel was the right person for this job, but every day he exceeds expectations as the leader of this district. And so we know that we're moving in the right direction.
Why did you decide this path? What were your deciding factors there?
Nobody else had that question, right? It's hard to quantify in just a statement because we've been working on this for months and months and months. And so the process really dictated when we got to A, B, and C. And then we really took a hard look at those few things that separated A from B from C. We kind of looked at C, and when I say we, a lot of input from our navigator group that we've talked about before, and that those conversations about what does the data really tell us, what is the input telling us, and we really believe that it really was reduced to just a few things that separated A and B. For me and for our navigator crew, there were some very subtle things, distances from, for example, a middle school to a high school in a feeder pattern. Proximity of schools, one within a range of miles to another similar school. So it wasn't a single, this is it, this is why we're picking B. It was just a culminating effect of all the data that's out there and what we believed our best pathway to success was. And I know that's not a direct, here's 1, 2, 3, but it's just hard to quantify it that way because it's been such an ongoing process. We believed from the outset when we presented on January 22nd that we could advance our district using A, B, or C. We just got to that place where we believe B was our best option for that greater OKCPS group, and then A for the Star Spencer feeder pattern.
As you said earlier, this is not something that's going to take, these changes aren't going to take place overnight. You just
Right.
kind of have a timeline right now as to how you would like to see things fall and progress.
Sure, and so it really is, we've defined our work into a series of categories or buckets. A few of them are the implementation timeline. So in order to take an elementary that we're converting to a middle, there are things we have to do. So there's a project list, there's a team leader, there's a financial impact. We've got transportation needs, routes. Parents want to know, okay, if I'm changing schools, where is the bus stop? How long is my son or daughter or grandchild going to be on a bus? Project timeline, team leader, etc. So what we're going to do in the next few days is begin releasing these timelines and projects out to our board, to our community, so that they can kind of follow along. You heard some talk about the dashboard, and I think that's a semantics thing. We're going to give access to information, as we have done throughout this process, so that we can relieve some of that anxiety that our parents and families have right now.
Now, as far as what will be repurposed for community or district use,
Right.
that I saw at the bottom said tentative drafts. What will determine what will finalize this?
Well, a March 4th vote that is a favorable vote. We can't do anything. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves until we know that's in the books. So then we will begin talking contractually with some of our agency partners. We have verbal, hey, I'd really like to be in that space. We've walked buildings with different people. And so once March 5th rolls around, we can now get serious about what that contract looks like. One of our goals has been, in addition to creating opportunities and equity, it's been efficiency. And so we want to take schools that are closed, and we don't want to pay the utility bills anymore. We don't want to pay insurance. We don't want to pay overhead. And so that's that contractual piece. And if you want to be a partner in one of our repurposed schools, what does that look like? So that is a March 5th and beyond conversation we'll have with our agency partners.
Now, this is expected, these changes, these closures are expected to save the district a lot of money. Can you tell us how much?
Sure. With our final recommendation, we believe that we're just over $4 million in that recurring cost. So money we pay every year as long as we're running a building, your utility costs, your insurance, your custodian. For 15 schools, once we cease to pay that, we believe about $4 million comes back into our reinvestment bank that we can then turn around and go get additional counselors and teachers and those things that we've been calling trade-ups.
Now, this transition into Plan B is expected to cost the district just over $11 million. Where will that money come from?
That's great. So the $11 million are not the reoccurring costs. Those are the one-time costs to get our schools ready to have school. Those will come from one-time funds and really defined as bond funds. And so we've had bonds over the years where we have met the obligations of the bonds. We brought to our patrons everything we said we would bring, and we have additional reserves left in those bond funds. So one-time money going to one-time implementation of everything from moving a water fountain up 12 inches so that it's now equipped for a middle school kid rather than an elementary. We want to equip all of our science labs around the district, so we use one-time money. That's a one-time cost, and so that's where that money comes from. Generally, it's going to come from those bond funds.
And that's money that we already have. This won't be an additional bond.
That's exactly right. Yes, good clarification. Yes, ma'am.
So you said after March 4th, parents will be able to apply for transfer requests, right?
That's right.
So what do you expect as far as how many kids might be transferring? Will they all be approved? I mean, what do you know about that?
That's good. So we have some trend data that tells us approximately by school how many of those students are on transfer and how many are within the attendance zone. So we have that data for years and years and years. As you close schools and expand attendance zones, that will have an effect on the total number of transfers you can accept. So what we expect is high percentages of kids who are on transfer now will get to come back as transfers in those schools. We cannot guarantee, outside of those grandfathered kids who are rising up to that top grade in a school, those are guaranteed. Outside of that, we cannot guarantee other kids' seats, but we've never done that in our district. Every year as an annual, I've got to reapply for a transfer outside of our application schools. So our projections are that we think we're going to still allow lots and lots of kids transfers and approve those moving forward.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a first come, first served basis.
No, that's a great question. It's a tiered system that you'll find in our transfer policy. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are 5 or 6 tiered, kind of a pecking order where we will consider this first, then we'll consider this. For example, if a student is attending on transfer because it's a rising 4th grader and they're guaranteed a seat, the next tier would be a sibling of that student. Okay, so we look at the tiered system, we look at the number of seats in the capacity of the school, and then we begin notifying families that your transfer has been accepted or denied. Yep.
I think you said 45 schools are ready to go in August, but 12 needs some modifications. Can you kind of talk about some of those modifications that are going to need to be done to those schools?
Sure. So the 12 schools, it ranges everything from the conversion of the elementary to the middle and all that entails. So it's toilets, it's sinks, it's water fountains. It may be that an elementary that we're converting to a middle does not have adequate recreational space outside for softball practice, for football practice, etc. It may be in a building like this where classroom comes over. They're used to having a dance studio. And so we've got to convert classrooms to dance studios. That's day one ready stuff. We don't want this to be a trade down. We want this to be trade up. And so those are kind of phase 1, day 1 readiness types of things. Anything that it would require for us to deliver that high quality education to our kids on the first day of school.
So that will have to be done before August.
Before August, yeah, well, before August 12th. We're shooting for August 1, but certainly that phase 1, day 1 ready, we're shooting for August 12th, certainly. Thank you, good question.
How confident are you, if it passes, to establish that by that date?
Well, I don't have if in my vocabulary anywhere.
100%.
So we are very confident. I mean, we believe that those things that will fall on that day 1 readiness list, we will be done. And the reason, and I think this escapes a lot of people, there is a mindset that a vote occurs on the 4th of March and then we roll up our sleeves and get rolling on the 5th of March. We have been rolled up sleeves and rolling since August, September, putting teams in place, talking to our contractors, our volunteer base. Those who know what this work entails, they've been focused on this for months. And so it's really hit the ground running on March 5th, not, okay, let's start creating our teams and let's see what we need to do. So we are very confident that August 12th, these day 1 projects will be complete and kids will be ready to go.
Your board had a lot of questions today. How confident are you that this vote will go through on March 4th?
I am extremely confident. Remember that I have not been the driver of this. I have been the fortunate one to come in and inherit a vision that was already set in motion. So the firms that we've been using, they were already hired when I got here. The guiding principles, those status quo statements, the vision of what this needs to look like. Months before I ever arrived, this board said, this is the direction we're going. So therefore, I am really confident that this board is going to say, this is a job well done. It's not perfect. We're going to monitor. We're going to adjust. But this, by far, beats the alternative, which is status quo. And none of us want to go back to status quo. So short answer, extremely confident.
Ms. McDaniel, for several years that the district has been something that a lot of the kids in the district, their parents have been transferring them to the greater Oklahoma, whether that be Mustang, Yukon, Edmond. Do you think that this new plan will make this district, this school district, desirable to where surrounding school districts now parents take a look and say, hey, maybe I want my kids?
That's really an exciting question for me, and I think the short answer is absolutely. We think that, again, in many areas of our district, it is already very appealing. We think in every school there are great things going on. But we think as a district, this P2G is going to change that narrative. And so if you're watching out there and you're residents of Oklahoma City, it is time to come back to Oklahoma City. We are going to equip our schools, provide resources, partner with people that are going to really support us as we move forward and become equitable across the board, provide opportunities that do not exist for lots of kids right now. I mean, this is the time. We are really excited about that thing right there. Yes.
With all the closures, what does this mean for staffing as far as the principals and teachers?
That's good. Yeah. So mentioned in the big room that we have collective bargaining agreements with 3 different groups of employees, and so we will follow that. We've got great working relationships with each of the unions and the leadership. So first part to the answer is we will follow those CBAs to the letter. The second part of that is we want to create and develop adult teams that fit the needs of our kids. And so March 5th, we will name all of our principals at all of our schools. And that begins the domino effect of building great teams. So the principals named will then have great input in who the assistant principals are. And then based upon the collective bargaining agreement and what we believe will be great fits for teacher teams at each of our schools, that's the next domino. Our support employees, we could not do what we do without our support employees, secretaries and custodians. And I'm not going to even start down the list because it's a big list, but we rely on them. And so they are a part of building these great teams. So it's another domino. So it's going to play out over the next couple of months on what these effective, dynamic adult teams look like by school. Great question.
Do we have an idea? Because I know that when we talk about building these teams, we're always in need of teachers, it seems like, and support staff.
Sure.
But when you talk about the closure of 15 schools, that's 15 principals, vice
Yeah.
principals. Will those, where will they go?
It's a great question. So, the most anxious folks in the system, not counting families, they're anxious. But in the educational system are the head principals. When I eliminate 15 schools for repurposing, that position goes away. So 15 head principal jobs, when this passes, are gone. So what we do is we say we're going to protect the employment of our employees. Meaning it could be that you move to another school as a principal, or you could move into an assistant principal role. Teachers are really a different animal because the question is not, am I going to have a job? It's where am I going to be? And then support employees are kind of in that boat as well. So kind of like a head principal, a receptionist at one of the closed schools. Well, where am I going to go? Because at the other schools, there's already a receptionist. And so it's a protection of employment. It may look different, but the question is not, are you going to be employed? It's where will you be and what role will you be playing for our school district? And so we covered all that ground with each employee group. We need to continue communicating that. I know there's a lot of anxiety there, but that's our plan that we've kind of rolled out to try and alleviate some of that anxiety. It's good.
Sean, what about the emergency certified teachers in the school, in the district? I know you got a lot. Are they going to be replaced?
Not necessarily. I mean, we have to have teachers in classrooms, and so you all know that what that looks like. It's emergency certified, it's alternatively certified, it's certified, and so we have a combination of all those in our district. We've got to find out where the needs are. A couple things about the emergency certified. On the one hand, we love them, and we're so grateful that they've taken on the challenge of filling a classroom as the teacher. Our preference would be that we have all highly qualified teachers in every single classroom. And so we've got to see through our recruiting efforts what that means. Once this all shakes out and we've made our moves and we've got faculties built at every school, invariably there are openings at every school. And so how do we fill those openings? We would like our recruiting effort to dictate that we fill all of those openings with highly qualified teachers. If we can't, you guys know, I mean, you've heard for a few years now about our teacher shortage. So if we can't, then we look to those next options. And so that's our process, and that's been a process here and in lots of surrounding districts where Plan A is highly qualified in every classroom. Plan B then becomes emergency certified, et cetera. So that's our plan, and we've got some great ideas. We've already started with the recruiting efforts, and we're excited about that. We're excited to get started on that piece.
What about those transformation schools?
Right.
Where are you going to go for those principals? Are you going to go in-house? Are you going to look outside the district?
We have advertised that outside of the district as well as looking at internal candidates. I'm just me, the way I'm wired. I like to look inside first. I like to find our best and brightest and most effective through a number of different criteria, rubrics that we use, evaluation systems that we use. And let's move from within. If we cannot do that, and we believe that there is an external candidate that head and shoulders is above an internal candidate, then we will do that. And so that's our process right now. Interviews are getting ready to begin for our transformational principalships, and then time will tell who those individuals are.
When do you expect to have those positions?
March 5th. Every principal at every school will be named by the end of the day on March 5th. So it's another example, and I think, again, that it's not March 5th, let's start the process. It's we have been collecting data, we've been recruiting people, we've put information out to our existing principals, kind of application for transformational schools, and so we're ready to move to implementation. We're not, and I know I beat the dead horse here, but we're not starting on March 5th. We're well underway. Yeah, great question.
One more?
There's a lot of concerns about what 19 and 20 looks like.
Yeah.
Pathway to Greatness is a 2025, 2030 project. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so sustainability. We've talked a lot about that. We've been given great direction by our board that, let's not take a bite out of this. Let's do something that takes us down the road 20 years. How about that? And that's a sustainability piece. So as we've moved through the process, we have had our conversations about that piece. Not, is this going to work for 3 years? Man, we hope so. We're talking about putting things in place that are proven, that are research-based, that will last over time. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to come back in and adjust or expand or pull back. But as far as this plan, this reinvention plan, we believe that this is a sustainable model and it will last for throughout time. Our next conversation, big conversation, is going to be about, hey, what do we do with these 20,000 new students that we got coming into the district?
Yeah.
And so then we get to talk about other exciting things like a bond authorization. And how do we, what a great problem to have, right? So we believe that's coming.